All right, so we are live on Facebook right now. So if you hear us good, give us a thumbs up. And if you could please mute yourself, that would be awesome there. Thank you very much. And then I am going to share my screen here. All right. Please do give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen here. Awesome. So happy lunch hour again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our discussion series part 2 of credit and loans. If you have joined our first session, welcome back. And if it's your first session, welcome to our discussion series. My name is Farah Naz, and I do have my colleague here, Jeff, with us today. So we are going to continue with our credit and loans discussion we started on October 5th, which was our launch date. If you have missed our participating our first session, you are more than welcome to watch it through the video that we went live on Facebook on October 5th, and Jeff is also gonna share it on the chat if you are joining us via Zoom, so you can catch it up there. And basically you can just go to Seed Winnipeg Facebook and you can find that video there and watch it on your own time. And again, the session will be informative and interactive, where I will provide information about credit and loans, and where I got all these information from Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. And my colleague Jeff will share his perspective based on his previous work experience, working many, many years at financial industries. So let's begin our session today with the land acknowledgement, and I am going to read it now. Seed respectfully acknowledges that we live and work on the territories and homeland of Indigenous peoples, and that the land and water sustain us. We respect the treaties as intended by Indigenous peoples. It is our responsibility to understand the truth of our history, be aware of the present, and work with Indigenous peoples to make positive changes for the future. Thank you very much for reflecting with me. In our first session, we discussed about these topics that you can see it on the screen here. And a brief refresher, we did talk about Credit Bureau. As we mentioned, that Credit Bureau is a company that compiles information in the form of credit reports. Then it passes to banks and lenders and other financial institutions. In Canada, there are two major credit bureau companies, Equifax and TransUnion. Credit report is a summary of your credit history that includes your personal information, financial information, and other accounts. So again, if you missed the first session, we recommend you going back and looking into the video. You can get all the in-depth information from there. And for those who joined us via Zoom last time, I left you all a short quiz, like one question there. And the question was, credit reports can include which one of the following? And I don't know if Jeff wants to guess the answer here.
It's a good question for sure. So I think for those of us tuning in, you probably have an idea in your mind of which of these responses you would choose as being the correct responses. So that's what I was doing in my mind, at least anyways, while Farnaz was asking the question. So what is included in a credit report? Well, it's going to be most of these things, but not all of these things. So the correct answer is A, B, and D. So your credit cards and loans, your mobile phone accounts, and if you have a mortgage, your mortgage account.
Sweet. So let's see if Jeff is correct here. Jeff is also seeing this question, the answer right now. Oh, Jeff, you did get it right. Here, I give you a star there. And yes, it does include your credit cards and loans, your mobile phone account, your mortgage, definitely not your Facebook post. So bravo, Jeff. All right, so today's discussion, we are going to discuss about what are credit scores, tips to maintain and improve good credit score, and how often should you check your credit report. So let's start off of what is a credit score? A credit score is a number that rates how well or how poorly you use your credit. And in terms, so what is actually credit? We did talk about credit, just a refresher. Credit is a term used in financial world. Generally, it's an agreement between lender and borrower where a borrower receives a sum of money and agrees to pay it back later, and usually it associates with interest. So a credit score is also, it's based on the information your credit that is in your credit report. You get points for using credit responsibly. For example, by making your payments and full and on time, you lose points if you don't manage credit in a responsible way. For example, by making your payments late, or maybe you don't even pay it. Or even going over your credit limit can also affect your credit score. So the credit bureau have system for determining the credit scores in Canada, and credit scores ranges between 300 points to 900 points. So I pulled a few sample examples from Equifax as well as TransUnion to just see how does it look. So this sample was from Equifax, and again, I got all these information from Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, where you also have access to it. Just Google it and you can find it. As you can see and on the slide here, Equifax, this is how they present your credit score. Put your credit score there, and it just gives you information where you're standing at. So the range is between 300 points up to 900 points. So the lowest it is, it's considered poor credit score. The highest it is, the better it is. So the best and excellent credit score is considered as a 900, which is the toppest. And Equifax also provide more in-depth information of if your credit score is low, then it does give you information what really impacts your credit score, that you can look into it and learn from that. And you can go and work on those in order to make your credit score better. So here's another example that I got it from FCAC. This is an example of TransUnion, and the way it shows, some people actually find it simpler. Some people actually find the Equifax simpler to read. So it's really up to you, whichever you prefer. Provides the credit score. It gives where the individual is standing, and if it's poor or if it's excellent. Again, it provides further in-depth information about what is impacting your credit score, and there are all more information there that you can get, but I wasn't able to get all of them in here as well. There, I couldn't get more sample examples from that, and I didn't want to put mine on there. um, Again, for the Equifax, they are also giving you a percentage of the Canadian population, that whereas like it seems like the majority of people are having a very high credit score, which is really good. So if you, yes, obviously you can get access to your credit score via your TransUnion and Equifax. You can actually get it for free. There is a basic account. There is a premium one where you can sign up and you can, you have to pay a certain amount, but usually I don't pay for to get my credit score. And I don't see the point of that. Yes, of course, it gives more information for the premium, but I personally find more information, all I need through that basic, which is for free. Maybe Jeff has a different idea. What do you think, Jeff? Do you pay for the premium in order to use that to get your credit score and more information?
Personally, no, I don't do that. If I'm wanting to check on my credit bureau report, I will I will choose the option to get it for free. So both Equifax and TransUnion will allow you to obtain your credit report for free. As Varna's mentioned, it's not as detailed as the reports that you would pay for. So you're not going to, you wouldn't get the credit score number, but you would get the details of your credit history. And the details of your credit history is probably more important than the actual score itself, because no one is just a number. Even though the credit bureau companies might like to think that way, at the end of the day, we are human beings and we're not just a number. There's much more to us than just that number. So definitely there's options to get the free credit bureau report. Usually you have to send in a form by mail, and then the credit bureau company will mail you a narrative report about your credit history.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And is there any other way that I can get my credit score? Yes, there is. Like nowadays, financial institutions, they partner with either Equifax or TransUnion. Again, it's based on the financial institution you're at. I know that certain financial institutions, they do have a way where they have connected one of these credit bureau companies into their system, where you can easily go to your online banking and see your credit score there. But again, you have to reach out to your financial advisor within your banking and ask them if there is a way. I will be surprised that many financial institution wouldn't have this service, because like a lot has that in a tip of your click. Just go to online banking, go to a certain spot and click it, and you can reveal your credit score there. Again, go to your talk to your financial advisor. So what key factors are used in determining credit score? There are 5 key factors in calculating and determining your credit score. The payment history, which is the biggest portion of it. Your payment history is the most important factor in your credit score, and creditors want to know if you are going to pay them back the money you are asking to borrow from them. And then there is amounts you owe. When you apply for credit, how much you already owe really matters to a lender, because they wanted to navigate and see that are you going to be able to pay the amount of money you're gonna borrow again. Like you already are paying certain amount for the amount you owe, and then you're adding extra debt on that. Will you be able to pay for that? Can you afford that? Then there are the length of credit history, where the length of time you have had credit shows how responsible you have been. And for someone who has not used credit for very long, it is difficult to tell if they really know how to use credit responsibly. And then there is a new credit, which is frequently applying for new credit can signal to the lenders that you are facing some sort of financial difficulty. That's why you keep applying for new credit. So that is why, if you do not need credit in any sort of way, just don't apply for it, because that is going to stay on your history, and the lender will get a little bit nervous regarding of why you keep applying for credit. And then there are types of credit use. So different types of credit shows on how you handle your money overall. And I'm gonna ask Jeff here. Jeff, can you please explain to us some examples based on your experience, or that you worked at financial institutions, that what are different types of credit and how they work?
That's a great question. And we're talking a lot about credit history and credit scores, and how that history and those scores are a reflection of how responsibly the person, the individual, is using their credit. And that's important to know, because there are different types of credit, and different types of credit have different forms of repayment. They have different access to credit and things like that. The major credit types can be summarized into three categories. There's installment credit, such as loans, mortgages, and things like that. There's revolving credit, things like credit cards and lines of credit, where you are provided with a certain limit that you can use, and as you pay it back, you can use it again. And then there's other types of accounts, such as a mortgage account or a cell phone account, that type of a thing. And the reason why these different types of credit are important, or at least to understand, is that lenders will be looking for borrowers who have experience with credit. That's why the payment history is 35% of the score and the amounts owed is 30% of the score. Those two pieces of the pie are 2/3 of the overall score. They're extremely important. But also important is, what type of experience do people have with credit? So do you have experience with revolving credit? Do you have experience with installment credit? And if so, how long is that experience? Is that experience brand new? Did you just recently obtain that credit facility like a month ago or 6 months ago? Or is this a credit facility that you've had for more than a year? These are different aspects that the lender will look at in terms of assessing a person's credit worthiness. Like I mentioned before, a score is just a number, and we're not just a number, there's more to it. So most lenders, they will look at the score for sure, but they will also look at the context of that score. So they'll look deeper into it and look at the different types of credit that a person has experience with and the length of time that they've had experience with those types of credit.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jeff. In that case, I was just thinking that I moved into Canada in 2018. So I was having a challenge. At that time, I think there was some differences between the time right now regarding newcomers being able to get certain amount of credit card limit. At that time, I was having a hard time to receive a credit card. So is that because I didn't have any history? Also, I didn't have any other sort of credit. That's why they didn't provide me that credit card, Jeff?
More than likely, yes. Past experience with credit is usually a requirement, usually, but not always. So it does depend on the credit provider.
Mhm.
But that would be one good reason. Another thing that they look at too is affordability. So that might be something. Sometimes when newcomers come to Canada and they apply for credit, but they don't have a job yet. And so if they aren't able to demonstrate that they've got income coming in to be able to repay that debt, then they might not be qualified. They might not be approved for that application.
Wonderful. Good to know. Thank you very much, Jeff, for the information. And I think like there has been some changes happening with their rules and regulation. Right now, I think they have, if you are certain, you have certain kind of immigration documents, they automatically approve you for certain amounts that is starts from $500 up to $2,000. So I think that's great based on what this changes they brought up, because at that time, based on the status I was and based on the amount of money or asset I had in my banking, I wasn't able to receive any sort of credit card, and I wasn't able to build any credit score. So I went ahead and I got credit cards, MasterCard from I think Presidential Choice and Walmart, which I never used it. And little did I know at that time, they do pull my credits history out, which they state on my credit report. And then when I received the credit card from my financial institution, they's like, oh, you already have these. I'm like, I've never used it. They're like, yeah, if you ask for a credit card, they will always pull your credit history. So be mindful of that. All right. So I'll come back to you, Jeff. Please teach us a little bit about, if let's say I just receive a credit card, I'm newcomer, I just opened a banking and I am lucky and I got a card of limit of 2,000. How do I use that in order to build a good credit score where I'm just starting fresh?
It's a good question. So it really kind of boils down to making sure that you adhere to, that you follow the rules of that credit product. So with credit cards, they can be different from credit card issuer to credit card issuer, but they usually share some common characteristics, such as the credit limit of 2,000 that you mentioned, and you're required to make a minimum payment each month. If you don't make that minimum payment, if you only make the minimum payment, pardon me, then you'll have to pay interest on the money that you borrowed and things like that. So when it comes to credit cards, some tips for maintaining good credit would be to make sure, that before you apply for a credit card, that you're going to be able to afford whatever the payment requirement for that card is. Um, in my experience, most credit cards are going to offer a fairly low payment, maybe 2 or 3% of the outstanding balance as a minimum. But a word of caution, if you only pay the minimum payment on credit card bills, then it's going to take you decades to repay that debt. That's a topic for another conversation, but I just wanted to point that out. So you want to make sure you can make the minimum payment, because you're going to be required to make that minimum payment on an ongoing basis for as long as you owe money. So you want to make sure that you've got job stability, that you've got some income stability, and that you're going to be able to afford that minimum payment. That's the first thing. The second thing is then you need to make sure that you use the card responsibly. So when you're making purchases and things like that, you want to protect the card and protect the information of the card so that someone else can't get it. Protect your PIN number. Only use secure portals when making purchases online and things like that. You also want to make sure that you make the payment on time. We as the consumer don't get to decide when the payment's due. The card issuer will decide that date. And so we need to make sure that we make that payment by that date. And sometimes, depending on how that payment is being made, it might take a couple of days for the credit card issuer to receive your payment. For example, if you make a bill payment through your online banking with your financial institution, or if you mail in a check to the creditor, those payments might take 2 or 3 days to be processed. And so you might have to send your payment in a few days before the payment is actually due. With regards to revolving accounts like credit cards and lines of credit, I would also recommend that you not utilize the entire limit. So in this example of a $2,000 limit, you would probably not want to use it for more than maybe $1,250 to $1,500. If you max out a credit product, then it looks like you might be in trouble because it's at its limit and there's no extra room to put anything new on the card. So credit utilization is something to be aware of, and trying to make sure that you don't use up the entire revolving credit limit for credit cards and lines of credit as well. So I think those are kind of the main factors, is making sure that you'll be able to adhere to the terms and conditions and then follow those terms and conditions. Did I miss anything critical?
No, those are great, Jeff.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. At the same time, one thing I would like to add as well, that if you can, just pay it as soon as you use it. That way you wouldn't feel uncomfortable feeling that, oh, what is going to happen when I have to pay when it's due date. So there's no risk of missing any payment at all. All right, so we can go ahead. I have another question, Jeff. Let's say I got that credit card 2 years ago, $2,000, and I messed up. Life was really hard. COVID was there. I couldn't pay my bills on time. So I maxed out my credit card. I couldn't pay it on time. Now I am paying interest as well as the limit, and I'm unable to finish the payment. Obviously, there's a lot more for me to pay, more than what I used. I'm really like discouraged regarding to, I don't think I'm able to make a good credit score anymore. How do I fix that then?
That's a good question, and it kind of depends on to what degree that the issue occurs. If it's let's say it's one account out of
Mhm.
several accounts that you have, and all those other accounts were managed okay, pretty much all you'll have to do is just start or resume making your payments on time to that credit card account that was impacted by that situation.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's most of the time it's just time going by. There's no magic solution to fix poor credit overnight. The only way to erase a bad credit history is to move forward with new good credit history, assuming that it isn't too severe. There are
Mhm.
more severe situations where a person might not be able to maintain their finances, and so they might have to take more severe means, such as a bankruptcy or consumer proposal. That's outside of the scope of our topic today, but in those situations, it's a much more complex and a longer period of time to recover from something like that. In most cases, people have a temporary issue that is causing some distress to their finances, or not allowing them to make their payments on time for a temporary period of time. And in those cases, the recovery of the credit score will usually be fairly quickly, as long as you maintain your payments on time going forward after that. Yeah, but at the same time, if you are needing to apply for credit in that time where your credit history, that credit history issue might be recent, then it's very likely that you'll be asked about that situation by the lender. So the lender might say something like, tell me about the late payments that you had to your MBNA MasterCard in April of 2021. Right. And that would open the door for you to tell your story about what happened. And if you have a reasonable reason for what's happened, and it appears to be an isolated incident on that credit bureau, then chances are the lender will acknowledge the story and hopefully be able to still work with you and approve your credit.
Great.
So I think like being prepared to talk about it, and knowing that that will be a question that's going to come to you, I think that's important, because some people get surprised or maybe a little bit nervous about having to talk about a poor credit experience that they might have had. So if it's short term and temporary, those can be much more easier to come. But more complex scenarios, you probably need to sit down with your financial advisor for some one-on-one financial counseling.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. And we are short in time. Unfortunately, we cannot finish everything. I was hoping that we finish everything we wanted to cover today. We have still that topics that how often we should check our credit history, hard credit check versus soft credit check, how long information stays in credit report. And at our next session, I had an agenda there that we will be talking about how credit cards work and types of credit cards and your rights and responsibilities. So unfortunately, we are almost like 1 minute left. If anyone has any question here, do please ask right now. So we do have 1 minute to talk about it. Adeno, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation. It's a very useful. So the first one is, I sometimes see in my online, when I check like online, it says like no credit score. So what does it mean? Like there is no information. So should I get like by paying, the reports, anything on the, because I see sometimes like no credit, no scores. So I sometimes wondering, what is this? And if you tell me, yeah. And the second one is like the minimum payment, 2.3%, right? Jeff was mentioning that it's good to pay the minimum payment 2.3%, but how often should we pay that? What's recommendable to pay? In yeah. So the third one is like having multiple credit cards. What is the, for example, like there are different banks, and sometimes when you open an account in different banks, they also give credit cards, right? So yeah, so what's the disadvantage and advantage of that? Thank you.
You're very welcome, Adeno. Jeff, would you like to tackle, and I'll add whatever comes to my mind? I think Jeff is frozen. All right, so I will start off of it, and then Jeff can connect back, and hopefully he will be able to add his knowledge there. No credit score, that means if you are trying to look into your credit score through your online banking, and if it says that no credit score, then that means your social insurance number is not really connecting with your credit bureau. That's what's happened with me when I started first in Canada. Every time I would go to my online banking and try to reveal my credit score, it would just say no credit score. So I called TransUnion because my financial institution is partnered with TransUnion, and that's how I can review it through my online banking. And I called them, I'm like, I am unable to see my credit score. And when they did navigation investigation, there was a little bit of a problem with my social insurance number was mixed with my sister's social insurance number. So that's why I wasn't able to see my credit score. So you gotta go to your, you can definitely talk with your financial advisor, but again, they're gonna refer you to the TransUnion or Equifax that you can have to connect so they can fix it for you on their system. Then the payment, minimum payment, that is again based on your financial institution. That's based, every financial institution set up a minimum payment that comes on your statement at the end of the month. At the end of the month, and once you look at your statement, it says your minimum payment is usually it's $10, but again, it may vary based on your financial institution. I don't know which bank do you bank with. You gotta look into your statement and figure out that minimum payment. And again, keep in mind that these credit cards, we will talk about it next in our next session, hopefully when our topic is about credit cards. So again, there are different kinds of credit cards. And usually if it's you are not using a low rate credit card, then usually the regular credit card interest rate is quite high. And every day it is increasing. So if you're doing minimum payment, the next time you're gonna pay even more because you are paying the interest payment. Yes, you will keep up with your credit score by showing that yes, you stay up to date regarding paying at least your minimum. But over time, as you don't pay the credit card limit every time, it adds up. It adds up, it adds up, and it will get to the point where it might overwhelm you and you won't be able to pay it off. So that's why my advice when I worked at financial institution, I talked with my clients saying that, okay, so these are, so how do you stay up to date with your payment? Look at your budget. First, you have to work on your budgeting. Again, we will discuss about budgeting and cash flow in the future sessions, how to budget yourself. Whatever comes to your account, based on that, you have to do your calculation to do some bit of saving for your rainy days, some sort of emergency. You got to do some your day-to-day expenses and a little bit on the side in case you will need it or you want something for pleasure or anything. So there are a lot into it. I can't go into cash flow more. So based on that, you use your credit card. Don't use your credit card. I always recommended that to not use your credit card based on the limit of your credit card. Use it based on the limit you have in your checking account or the amount you can afford. Because credit card has this like, it's it is great to have that money there, but again, that's not our money. At the end, if we think of it like our money, it will put us in trouble. And then multiple credit cards, it actually depends on you. How can you manage your credit cards? I personally don't like to have multiple credit cards because I don't want to miss any sort of payments there. It's a lot. The more I have, the more complex it gets and the more responsibilities I have, and I have to juggle with a lot of them. I had a PC credit MasterCard, which I mentioned when I first came as a newcomer. None of the financial institution was giving me any credit cards. So PC was willing to give it to me, and they gave it to me. I had Walmart MasterCard. And if I go back, I would never get all those things. At the end, I cut them, I canceled them, but it's still in my history. So what is the point of you having many credit cards? How is this going to benefit you? Is this just to have it in your wallet, or is you are going to use it? You have a PC, you use it in PC and you're getting points. Great. Go ahead and use it. But keep in mind, you got to pay it on time and be responsible towards it. You have RBC credit card. Maybe you have an Avion point where you like receiving points and you wanted to redeem those points for your traveling, which is great. And you are keeping up with the responsibility there. So again, we will talk about rights, responsibilities, everything during our credit card. And again, it really depends on how you manage and how you keep up with your payment. It is not bad to have many credit cards. It is bad to have many credit cards, but you're not being responsible towards them. All right, so we are 7 minutes over our time. Thank you so much, Adano and Walwala, and we had Barb, we had Farid joined us. Thank you for joining us via Zoom. And if you have any suggestion, question, anything, comments, any other topic that you want us to discuss about it in the future session, do please let us know. You can reach out Jeff or I via email. You can call us, and everyone who joined us via Facebook Live group. So thank you. Enjoy your lunch break and have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're very welcome.
You're very
Bye-bye.
welcome.